Welcome to the Flippin' Hippos reseller channel. I'm Star. If you're new here or you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the thumbs up. It helps us feed all of our hungry hippos. Today, I just want to do a quick check-in on Etsy. I started selling on Etsy this year for the very first time. It was one of my business goals for 2025 to expand to the Etsy platform. I was on the fence about Etsy for 8 years, as long as I've been a reseller. We all know that plush is very long tail, and so I was hesitant to put my vintage plush on Etsy. They do charge you per listing. It's 20 cents per listing, and that gives you 4 months. At the end of 4 months, it rolls back over and relists, and you get charged another 20 cents. If the average plush takes a year to sell, then I've been charged 3 times. That's 60 cents. Overall, that's not a lot. Once I put thought into it, even with long tail plush, I was stepping over dollars to make pennies, basically. I've also been selling jewelry now for, I guess, a year and a half. That was something new I started in 2024. Do you see a pattern here, you guys? I do encourage you to do this as well. You can do it yearly, quarterly, monthly, but try new things. Just pick something new and try it. I started jewelry in 2024, and that's going really well. Our sales on all platforms with jewelry does do well, and I enjoy doing the jewelry. It's in my top 3. The other 2 are plush and jeans, obviously. And I have some other vintage items, and I recently made that big bulk buy for my friend last year. I've got everything up now except for the last box of plush. Well, there was a lot of vintage items in there as well. So there were a lot of reasons for me to try Etsy, but I never did. And so 2025 was the year that I was going to try Etsy. I did do a video. I think it was in January. Yeah, it wouldn't have been December because I really didn't start until January. So I did do a video in January of me signing up for Etsy and going through the process of creating my first listing. And I feel like that entire video was a big old fat struggle bus. If you want to watch me struggle and flounder my way through something I had no idea what I was doing, I didn't watch any tutorials I just jumped in and did it. Watch it. I'll have it come up at the end. It's kind of funny, because that's what I do typically. It's how I learned how to resell. I just jump in and learn. Now I wouldn't say I'm an expert because I've only been at it for 5 months, but I know what I'm doing now, and I've learned a lot along the way. So I wanted to check in with you guys, my Etsy journey in 2025. You got to see the beginning of it in January. I did say that I was only going to cross post enough each month, that I was only paying $59. That's the subscription, the store subscription price I pay for eBay. So in my mind, justifying paying that same amount for a whole new platform monthly is okay. The way Etsy works, they do charge you to 20 cents per listing. When you make a sale, they add it to your total. They do like a line by line item thing. So if I've listed $40 worth of items this month and I make a $60 sale, I'll have a $20 profit. And then they'll take my fees out of that and the shipping label, because I do free shipping. I build it into the price. It's not really free. And so they do that all month. All your sales get added in, and all your fees, shipping labels, and anything you're listing gets subtracted. If at the end of the month you're in the positive, the green, they pay you. Or at the end of the week, for me, you can pick how often you get paid. I do every Monday. And then if you come out owing, then they'll charge your credit card that you have to put on file when you sign up. So January and February, I made 1 sale each month. It was pretty dismal. And so, of course, I had to pay like $40, I think, in January, and like $30 in February. And I only made 1 entire whole sale on that platform for the entire month of January and February, or 2 sales, 1 per month. And then in March, I started to get a few more sales. And it's probably just the logistics of having more items listed. You know, if you have 20 items on a platform, you're probably not going to sell as much as someone with 100 or 1,000 or 5,000. And then I was talking to my friends at a List Perfectly listing party, and my friend Annette says, you need to run sales. And I said, well, I am on the weekends. And she said, no, it's pretty much just like eBay. And I said, oh, I didn't figure that. She said, yeah, if you run sales around the clock, you have to figure your prices, so price a bit higher to give yourself that room. But if you run sales around the clock, just like I do on eBay, you'll get more sales. And I had already priced my items higher on Etsy to begin with, because everyone said you can get more money, and you can. We're going to talk about Plush in a second. But in like the first couple of weeks of March, I went ahead and turned on a 20% sale that now runs all week. January and February, I was only running a sale Friday through Sunday for 25%. Then I made the switch to 20% all the time. It's probably a combination of having more items listed plus the sales, but I started getting daily sales. Well, knock on wood. Etsy's my girl. I almost always get a sale every day. If not, it's at least every other day. It's doing really well. And the thing about the plush is crazy, because my biggest hesitation with Etsy was the vintage plush, because they're long tail. And again, yes, it's only 5 cents a month to keep a listing on there, but it still all takes away from your bottom line. And every time you can make more money, you make more profit. But I've had some of these vintage plush long enough that they went to Florida with me and came back. When I tell you that plush is long tail, I'm not kidding. There's some that just take forever. And I've always had the room. I've always had, you know, like our old house here, we had the entire attic. When we lived in Florida, we had a garage. Here we have an entire first floor of a house. So I always have room for inventory. I've always been volume based. It's whatever. But some of these plush are, you know, have been around for a couple of years. And they've been on eBay. They've been on Poshmark. They've been on Mercari. And I'm cross-posting them to Etsy. Everything's cross-posted now except for my new listings. So everything I had active on eBay of our, I think we have 5,400 listings now. Anything that was vintage, handcrafted, it's all on Etsy now. It's all been cross-posted. So I'm just adding new daily listings. Anyway, that was a tangent. So in March and April, I was working on moving my plush. Now, I was running them through List Perfectly's AI in the List Perfectly catalog just to freshen up the listings a little bit. I was freshening up the titles, switching pictures around, and then I ran it through the AI to get a good description and the keywords. It is a common, well-known fact among the List Perfectly community that the AI that builds your listings, the hashtags it creates, do really well on Etsy. Ever since List Perfectly introduced the AI last summer, the Etsy sellers started running their old stale listings through the AI and putting them on Etsy, or refreshing their Etsy listings and started selling more. Whatever the keywords are that List Perfectly's AI creates, just do so well with Etsy's algorithm and get you so many eyeballs on your items. And knowing that going into it, I just took my old vintage listings and I ended them on all the other platforms and did this refresh with the AI, and then, you know, relisted them and then moved them to Etsy. Some of them were selling overnight. Some of them were selling within a couple of days. The plush on Etsy is selling probably a little bit more or just as equally as my jewelry. And I've sold a couple pieces of clothing. I sold an Oregon Ducks windbreaker for like $60. So I'm doing really well. I bring up the Oregon because it was like my first sale, and I remember that. But the plush is what's blowing my mind. These have been around for years. Put them on Etsy and they sell. Is it because the buyers on Etsy are actually buyers seeking vintage plush and know the value of it? and know exactly what they're looking for? Is it the keywords from the List Perfectly AI? Is it me running sales? It's probably a combination of everything, but I've found the formula or whatever it is. I'm not going to mess with anything. If everything is working cohesively, I don't want to mess with one element and risk throwing everything off the rails. So all of the things combined that I'm doing are working. The really funny thing about the Plush is, say it's a $50 vintage jumbo plush. It'll sell overseas, internationally, and they'll pay another $50 on top for their shipping. I do not do free international shipping on Etsy. I'd be crazy. So they're paying double what these plushies are worth within days of it being listed. It's blowing my mind, and it's really exciting. So I am doing really well on Etsy. I wanted to check in with you guys. There was a point, mid-February when I said, listen, I'm paying, basically $60 a month to list, to move everything, and I'm not really getting any sales. And everything starts to relist itself every 4 months on Etsy, like I said, and recharges you that 20 cents per listing. It's daily, though. So on May 1st, all of the stuff that I listed in January that hadn't sold didn't all at once start relisting itself on May 1st. On May 1st, the stuff from January 1st, May 2nd, January 2nd. So it's exactly 4 months on the calendar. But I had said if by April 31st, I wasn't doing better and wasn't making profits, like getting a payout every week on top of paying for my fees and my listing fees and all of that, I was going to abandon the platform and give up. And this was the plan all along in the back of my mind. But now I'm doing so well. I'm so excited. I purposely want to go out and thrift more stuff that's vintage that I could put on Etsy because it's just doing really well. So that is my check-in. That's my journey. I told you guys I would take you along this year on my Etsy journey. And I was kind of just letting it cook for 4 months to see where we were going to be, if I was going to step away from the platform or continue for the rest of the year. So I wanted to give it that first 4 months to cook and see what it was going to do, and then check in with you guys. Do I recommend everybody being on Etsy? Yes, if you have things you can list on there. I've also put some of our remotes over there, and those do well also. And some of those sell internationally, which is weird. The thing with the remotes is you want to make sure they're vintage. Gosh, this makes me feel so old. You guys, anything from 2005 and older is vintage. 2005. Old, old, old. Anyway, gosh. But anyway, the rule of thumb with the remotes, if it's like a DVD VCR combo remote, we all know that those were from the 90s. So that's vintage. But you can move anything that's vintage. I've been moving some of our comic books over there. Only the ones that are like $15 or more. That was also general consensus when I talked with my friends, my List Perfectly friends, as I like to call them, because we meet in our List Perfectly, we call them listing parties. They're Zoom calls where we all get together and talk about the business and learn from each other. The general consensus is $15 and up is okay on Etsy. So we have a lot of vintage comics, and I'm just I delist, relist 20 items a day. So now that I've got everything that can go on Etsy cross-posted to Etsy, except for comics. But as I'm delisting, relisting each day, if it's something that can go on Etsy, it goes. If it's already there, I update. I do not delist, relist on Etsy because you get charged that 20 cents. But I will update just to make sure I have the good keywords and all of that. So things are going well. I recommend Etsy if you have vintage items, crafting items. Like I have a lot of pendants for necklaces that aren't on a chain. And I get a lot of them in my bulk buys, which is fine. You can sell the pendants for as much as the necklaces. And some of them are really pretty and I do well with them. But because they're not on a chain, they're considered DIY jewelry. That's crafting. You can put that on Etsy. I have, I don't know if you can see it back there. There's a bag of jeans back there that I'm not going to sell because they have the pilling and the wear in the crotch, and some of them are ripped in the crotch. But instead of getting rid of those jeans, because what I used to do, I sell everything I get in my bulk buys, but if they're unsellable, you can't. So I would get rid of the jeans. But now I'm saving all these jeans that are unsellable, broken zippers, holes in the crotch or whatever, and I'm going to bundle them up and put them on Etsy as like a DIY denim crafting fabric bundle type thing. I obviously will look up other listings to see how they're wording it before I try it, but you can put a lot of stuff on Etsy that people don't think about, like thinking out of the box. But you recommend it if you have items that can go on there. I know people who do cookbooks on there and do really well. Other electronics sellers that have vintage items, video games and stuff. Do I recommend you cross post, period? Yes. I just put out my midweek motivation this week was all about learning how to pivot and change, but not having all your eggs in one basket. You cannot have all of your items just on one platform. If something happens to that platform or to your account on that platform, you are screwed. You don't have an income. And you don't want to wait until something happens and you no longer have money coming in to start cross-posting. You want to do it while your accounts are all healthy and everything's funky-dory and you're making money and hunky-dory, not funky-dory. Yeah, you want to start cross-posting when everything's great so that if something were happening, you still have income coming in. I like Etsy. I guess that's all I came on here to say. I'm really thrilled about the plush that's selling. That's like, there's other things that are selling on the platform, obviously, and I'm doing pretty well, but the plush is what's blowing my mind. So if you have vintage plush, I do recommend Etsy for that. I think it's international buyers that are looking for it. I've said this before on this channel. International buyers do enjoy our Disney items and things like that. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to join my Facebook group. It's called Flippin' Hippos Reseller Pod. Until next time, go be productive. Make sure you're cross-posting. Make sure your eggs aren't all in one basket. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye.